In this video I will be framing the second floor of my project on my own. I'm using 3/4 inch Advantech plywood for my subfloor. The first 27 sheets were brought up the ladder. I then built my stairs and used them to bring up the rest of the sheets. Subfloor adhesive is put down on top of the floor joists. This secures the plywood better and prevents the floor from squeaking. When I lay the plywood down, I have my foot on it to prevent it from moving when I drop it. Then I use a scrap piece of wood to protect the edge of the plywood while I am hitting it with the sledgehammer. There needs to be a 1/8 inch gap between the sheets for expansion. I then nail the sheet down every 8 inches. There are circles on the Advantech to show where the joists are located, and to give you the spacing. I started by setting my doubled bottom plate, and then marking the staggered layout on top of it. Next I installed the outer corners, and added braces to them to keep them vertical. I pre-cut all of the studs and laid them out approximately where they need to go. This makes it a lot faster for installation. Once all of the outside pieces were nailed on the bottom, they are nailed to a horizontal brace to make them vertical, and the top plate was added. The studs for the inner wall are then cut to length and nailed to the bottom plate, and to the horizontal brace. This is the north wall of my building. I do not have any windows on this side, to reduce heat loss during the winter. The other three sides are constructed the same way, except for framing for the window openings. I will have a separate video going into more detail about how the windows are framed for double stud wall construction. In my previous video, someone commented that a regular double stud wall is just as good as the staggered stud wall, and I wanted to comment on that. While a regular double stud wall does have a thermal break, there is less chance of air getting around the insulation if the studs are not lined up with each other. The other reason I chose to use staggered is that it will be better for me to run wires and plumbing in the wall, and will give a better spot for wire staples and pipe hangers on the outside stud. I will show this better in one of my upcoming videos. When the barn was torn down, I had stacked all of the old timbers out of the way. My plan is to use them not only as structural elements, but also as decorative. I used a small trailer to move the barn beam to the garage door. Then I lifted it onto a piece of PVC pipe that I used as a roller to move it across the garage floor. I laid a piece of 2x12 on the stairs so I wouldn't damage them while I was dragging the beam up to the second floor. I could not pull the beam all the way up, so I needed to lift it the rest of the way. I cut the beam to length, then lifted it up onto the sawhorses, and then onto the top of the ladders, before setting them in place on top of the posts. The middle beam was raised the same way, except I needed to use blocks to raise it to its final height, and I used a sledgehammer to slide it in place. Next I put down the bottom plate for all of my interior walls. I pre-cut all of my studs and laid them out where they needed to go. Then I built the walls. I pulled the 2x12 floor joist for the attic up from the stairway, and leaned one end of them on top of the interior wall. I used a ladder to set the other end onto the barn beams. The joists were tipped up on edge and nailed in place on each end. Then blocking was added at the midpoint to maintain the spacing and to keep them vertical. The ceiling joists for the great room are made from 2x8s. They were leaned up against the house where the door to the deck is located. I pulled them in and leaned them on the barn beam. I'm using a lap joint, where the joists come together, so I am not cutting them to length before setting them onto the top plate of the south wall. When the joists are nailed together, they will act like a continuous tie joist, holding the front and back walls together. Please subscribe to my channel if you would like to be notified when my next video is available. The next one in this series will be framing the roof by myself. If you have been learning from my videos, hit the like button.